Forget gurus. Forget anyone claiming to be an online business expert without going through the challenges of entrepreneurship themselves. The Real Money, Real Business podcast is here to prove the best insights in online business comes from your fellow online business builders. We dig into stories of entrepreneurs selling their business on the Empire Flippers marketplace so that you can learn how they made their business profitable, how they overcame obstacles, and what lessons they learned in their online journey. If you want to take your business and your knowledge to the next level, you've come to the right podcast. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Real Money, Real Business podcast. I'm Lauren, and today we have Zach on the show who's selling a display advertising and Amazon Associates business on the Empire Flippers marketplace. Hey Zach, welcome to the show. How's your day going so far?
Hey Lauren, it's going good. Pretty early over here, but thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Fantastic. Well, hopefully this is going to be a great start to your day. I'm certainly looking forward to this conversation. But before we dive in, I'm going to give the listeners a brief overview of your business so that they have a better idea of what we're talking about. As I mentioned before, this is a display advertising and Amazon Associates business. It was created in July 2019, and it's in the home niche. The average revenue for the business is $24,860 per month, and it makes an average of $22,763 per month in net profit. The assets included with the business are a domain, including all site content and files, 301 redirects, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, and LinkedIn social media accounts, infographics, and a royalty-free license to use non-stock photos on the site. For everyone listening, you can visit empireflippers.com/marketplace and search for listing number 66160 to learn more about this business. Or you can unlock this listing to start your due diligence if you're interested in purchasing this asset. So now that we know more about the business, let's hear from the seller. Zach, can you fill us in on your background in starting and running online businesses?
Yeah, totally. So I actually started this website. This is my first website that I've done at this scale. I started during my final years of college. I remember I was in a corporate marketing internship that I was aiming to get throughout most of my college career. And then 3 weeks into it, as I'm sure a lot of people have found when they corporate, it's oh my God, this is not it. So I'd come across content generation as the main business model after many, many days, weeks, months of research. And I was you know what, I can make this work. And so I decided to use my lifelong skill of rural living, I guess, so to speak, growing up on a few acres of property, and then trying to make that a full-time income with content generation and blogging.
Yeah, that's great. It's amazing. It just takes a few weeks of working in a corporate environment to put you off for life, I think.
Oh my God, yeah.
So what made you think display advertising was the way to go?
After being in that environment, I was okay, I really want to work for myself long-term because I think that's going to be the best for myself and my family. And two, I want to exceed the income of a typical 9-to-5, which I felt this model specifically scaled the best and allowed me to help the most people with my content, which has kind of been my overall goal. I really have a passion for all things like home and outdoors, and it just led to me being something super passionate about actually building. For the first couple of years of building this, once I had my actual full-time job doing digital marketing, I would wake up 3 hours before that job would start, work for 1 to 2 hours, eat breakfast, go to the gym, and then either show up 5 minutes early or 5 minutes late to work. Usually 5 minutes late to work because I'm trying to crunch everything together. But I actually recently left that job mid-2022 to focus on this full time. So really just kind of the longevity for myself, my mental health, and my family. I just really felt this model was something I could get behind.
Yeah, certainly. It sounds like you had a long working day there, but it's great that you have such a passion for the site as well. Your display advertising is the main monetization, but you've got a couple of other revenue streams as well. Can you walk me through those?
Yeah, totally. So basically it's Amazon affiliates and lead gen are the other two. So I haven't really done my best work monetizing the latter. There's a lot of low hanging fruit left on the table. Basically display ads make up for about 87% of the income. Amazon affiliates about 12.5%, and then lead gen, the rest of that. Again, Amazon affiliates kind of have a lot of writers who are better at writing and they're smarter than me. And that's what you want, people who are better things than you that you work with. And so they find really, really awesome products to actually put in to the articles where then I check them. And then that's kind of how we monetize the affiliates on that end. But the overall affiliates, working with other partners where a higher commission rate comes through, and working with lead gen, whether somebody finds a different partner or finds a better way to monetize it than I am, could, again, make up those income streams even more than what the display ads are currently doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Your passion for the site definitely shines through, and you've clearly had a great journey with it. What are the reasons that you've decided to sell it now?
Yeah, totally. And so like, well, I want to get married is one thing. My girlfriend and I have been together a couple of years, and it's kind of time I popped the question. Obviously, you don't need the sale of this site, the income to drive a marriage. So I kind of made the decision to sell it a few months ago as I was tired of managing multiple large websites. Like I have another website in a shouldering niche. And I was like, you know what? Long term, like I really want to develop any brand that I stick with and kind of go all in. I don't really like half doing something. So long term, it just kind of made the most sense to like say, hey, I'm going to go all in on brand A or brand B. And I decided, brand B has something where I see it like, again, I'm kind of a country person. I really love to start like a seasonal farm for brand B, start like a potential retail outlet for it, and just kind of go all in on that aspect of the business. I love it. And this brand right here, my first site, I also love that. And so it was kind of tough making that choice. But again, I just kind of fell more in love with the second brand I developed. And it just makes a lot of sense for myself, my family, and then moving forward to just kind of focus on one site and not over extenuate myself and put for my family. So yeah, that kind of led the decision to saying, okay, one site's going.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, especially as you say, if you're planning on expanding your second site into physical products as well. Definitely a big venture there. So it makes sense to sort of free up your time and mental bandwidth. Looking back over your journey with this site, I'm sure there have been lots of ups and downs. Can you recall what was your biggest success or win that you experienced with the business?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. So getting featured in some of the high authority outlets that are in our backlink profile by name, it's really been a game changer and has led to some incredible opportunities and just really made it so much easier to grow not just this brand, but all of my brands because it's given myself and the actual brands a lot of recognition. I think you can see in a lot of the intro for the backlink profile where they come from, and they're just really high authority niche outlets. I would also say that recreating my process in a different niche and seeing similar success has given me a lot of confidence and reassurance in my processes as well in regards to scaling. Like if you look at post 50 on this site right here, my first site, you look on post 50 versus post 500, just the difference in quality and how it's gotten from point A to point B and the amount of content that I've been able to publish versus point A and point B. It's just been like, I've just been really proud of that and just consider that to be just a huge win overall.
Yeah, it must be a great feeling to look back over and see that growth laid out so clearly. It must be a good point of pride for you. So, Zach, I'm sure there were a couple of bumps in the road that you had to overcome. What sort of challenges or obstacles did you face with this business?
Unfortunately, like just after I was agreeing to list the site, which is probably like a month after my decision to sell it, I have normal traffic drop in January. Now the site has great backlinks and topical authority, so I'm not like super concerned long term, although you really couldn't ask for worse timing considering the vast majority of the posts are geared for like the spring, summer, early fall. When you look at them, most posts don't really bring in as much traffic during the winter months. So if certain articles drop, it looks severe. All of that coupled with what seems to be kind of an industry-wide drop in display advertising spend and revenue, which again looks like it's kind of stemming from the US economy, have definitely been the biggest challenges almost overall, considering just the timing of it. Of course, during scaling and other things that have come across during my entire process, like have definitely played a role. But this part right here comes at like the worst time as you're coming to sell.
Yeah, that is really unfortunate timing. Yeah, that's a real pity. Talk to me about where your traffic comes from. Are you using SEO to drive traffic to your site or backlink campaigns or anything like that?
Totally. So most comes from Google organic search, specifically like if we're talking countries, it's United States, United Kingdom, and Canada, but overwhelmingly the US.
Okay, perfect. I see you've got a couple of social media sites associated with the business as well. Are you drawing a lot of traffic from social media?
Not totally. Where most of it comes from, though, is a lot of people take out articles and they share it on like Reddit, Nextdoor, Facebook, just all their favorite platforms. But our like posts on social media, like ourselves, they don't really drive much, and I really haven't put a lot of focus to it. There's been intermittent times where I've said, "Hey, let's go do posts for like a month or two," but really nothing significant that drives a lot of traffic.
Sure, yeah. Can you walk me through your SEO strategy, just briefly, how you try and attract traffic to the site and rank the site?
Yeah, definitely. So I subscribe to Haro Premium, which is totally worth it, by the way, for anybody listening. I do a lot of manual outreach myself that way and like for myself, because what they want to see on Haro is they want to see somebody who has niche authority or is an expert and then can come through and help qualify their article, probably for SEO purposes generally. So I basically submit those Haro premium queries myself. I take my time to answer each one. And then I found that to be super rewarding with a lot of 70 and 80 plus DR backlinks. And then what kind of helps the SEO and the backlinks long term is I personally publish each post that's written and edited on our site, and I do any fine tuning / on-page tactics myself. So what that ends up leading to just a ton of organic backlinks and referring domains just coming through over time.
Yeah, Haro is a great resource and definitely a great way to build quality backlinks. What would you say are the major opportunities for growth that a buyer can tap into when they take over your site?
Yeah, absolutely. So the main low-hanging fruit is monetization and optimizing top posts. I have a high-value affiliate partner whose products easily fit into many of the top posts on site. I was debating on not starting with right away, but decided, hey, let's go through and set it up for the new buyer. So a lot of those are already optimized, or a lot of those posts are optimized with their links. Many of the long-standing top posts could use updating as well, as I really haven't majorly tweaked a lot of the content from its conception, just in favor of continuing improving the process and posting new content, because that's really what's been working. The lead gen income has also been kind of abysmal. As you can see, it really makes up less than 1% of the overall income. And I think it could be quite more considering the specific niche. But again, it really hasn't been a significant focus of mine. It's we put an in-text link in and we have the certain landing pages, but it really hasn't been a major focus overall, which content creation has been the major focus in putting out very helpful content. The overall affiliate structure, which I mentioned a little bit earlier, has been significantly under monetized as well. If I visited this site in 5 years with a new owner, I would love to see, somebody really utilize it to its full potential and work with industry professionals to make it a multi-author site. Beside myself, complete with interactive guides, ebooks, an info course, and personalized product reviews where hey, if you're working with writers or those specific industry experts, they're the ones buying products, taking their original photos, testing them out themselves, and really just trying to make content as helpful as it possibly can. And that's the ever-growing opportunity that I see with this site and any other site, and where I've really loved my process so far is because how it's gotten from point A to point B and eventually point C is that opportunity to keep growing and improving the content to, again, get you those top pages on Google.
Yeah, I think that's great. It certainly sounds like there's a lot of opportunities for a buyer to tap into. It sounds like you've laid the groundwork with the quality content that you've got there, and then they can expand on that with the lead gen and the other opportunities that you mentioned. So, Zach, can you walk me through your content creation process from how you come up with the topics, how you do your keyword research, all the way through to publishing?
Yeah, totally. So to start, basically, I use a project management system called ClickUp, and I hire all my writers off Upwork.com. I have specific SOPs and guidelines for how we need those articles structured, researched, and kind of overall written. For instance, on site, we only link out to .edu, .gov, or .org pages for the overwhelming majority of those posts that we put on the site. Bringing that back a bit, to start the process, I usually do a round of hiring with fully expecting a certain percentage of those new contractors to be absolutely amazing, and the rest to only say, hey, this isn't for me, and stick around for just about an article or two. For each writer, I'll have them go through our SOPs, research guides, and overall article structure, where I then work with them personally for the first 3 to 5 posts of our relationship, where I'm giving pretty tough feedback and giving them a lot of revisions just to kind of speedline and streamline things up. So after we go through that process for the first few posts, the whole thing itself kind of goes on autopilot for the rest of our working relationship, where it's hey, they'll pick a topic and then they'll bring it back and submit it. And it's wow, this is awesome. This is exactly what we're looking for. So on ClickUp, again, they select their own topic, move it along to the appropriate status, and then submit it for payment on Upwork, where then our editors, send feedback to the writers, both good and bad. They add photos and then do some basic on-page SEO, where then I take it from there and I say, okay, is this what I want to see? Is this what we want going live? Is this going to be the most helpful to readers? Which, if it is, great, it's going to get published. If it's not, I'll do my fine tuning on it and kind of go from there. But over the last 6 months of 2022, we averaged about 66 published or produced posts per month across both of my sites, my 2 largest sites, most of which are around 2,500 words in length. It varies a little bit, but they're longer posts.
That's fantastic. Yeah, it sounds like you've got a sort of a well-oiled machine running there, with clear guidelines from start to finish, which is really great. I'm sure that contributes to the quality of your posts. You mentioned that there was a huge improvement in quality from, say, post 50 to post 500. What sort of systems and processes did you refine to improve that quality?
Starting out, obviously your budget isn't as much. So I was able to, one, increase the budget where I still pay writers what's average for this industry. But starting out, I wasn't able to do that. So I probably wasn't able to find as good of writers, and I had to do a lot of the tweaking myself. It's almost like you're getting like a base kind of outline, and then you have to do a lot of the tweaking yourself. But over time, I was able to increase the budgets, which you see in my net profit, what that specifically is. But I was able to increase those budgets just to then be able to increase my overall process and where I was able to put things and so on and so forth. But it really stemmed with getting the right writers in for the business. Like a lot of my writers have, they have some sort of experience with the niche itself. Some just absolutely love researching. We link to a lot of scholarly articles, and over time, like are just requirements for what we think a quality article means and is has really, really improved over time. Like a lot of our articles now where it's appropriate, they actually have a lot of studies discussed in text where it makes sense. And really, we found that to help a lot with ranking and overall just putting something out that's quality, because when a reader comes to your site and when they read an article, because when they're first visiting your site, they're usually visiting it off of a keyword or a topic that they're putting into Google. And when you're one of the first pages that they land on and they see something that's, hey, we're referencing research, we're referencing something that's real, we're not just making it up, it really increases the trust factor, and it's actually typically correct. So that's something where over time, it's like, hey, we really put an importance on just fact checking ourselves and putting the most correct information out there as we can possibly find.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point. Quality content not only helps you rank higher, but it does help to improve that brand trust and keeps customers coming back for more. There's so many benefits to it. You've mentioned that you have writers and editors working for you. Can you give me an overview of the team that you have in place and what everyone does?
Yeah, so I can kind of walk you through like what my week to week looks like a little bit, including, my team members. So I have about 24 active writing contracts on Upward, where many of those writers have other jobs and clients. About half of those contracts deliver work periodically, with the other half deliver articles weekly, and they're part of my like standard team. So I then work with about 4 editors, some of which are also writers, or they were originally writers. So they either still do some writing or they're just fully on as editors due to the amount of articles that come in from our standard writers. But the reason I say like in my listing that we have 10 to 20 active contracts is because the activity level really varies for everyone. So really 10 to 20 of those contracts, depending on the time of year, are most active / high perform. I've actually found that having more contractors versus less gives me a significantly better article quality and performance from everyone, as it really kind of makes the environment stress-free. And I don't really have to push to get too many articles delivered. It's kind of like, hey, what we're expecting, the SOPs, what quality content is, take your time, do it when you feel like doing it. And then overall, somebody's usually happier and they really enjoy it. And like, I'm proud of my 5-star Upwork rating for the amount of contracts we had on there. It's just nice to be able to provide that environment. But once they go through all of that process, much of the content is basically the same, which, is the goal in scaling. So it doesn't really matter if somebody's doing it once a month or if they're turning an article 4 to 8 times a month. Like the quality is still the same. And granted, yes, there's differences between writers who have, specific experience in specific verticals, but a lot of the content quality is the same based on the guidelines we have in place. But after that, basically, I'll end up doing new topics every few weeks in large batches where they can pick their favorite topics that they actually want to write about, not me forcing an article topic on them. And then I'll pay out those articles weekly for what they've written during that week. But then actually during the week, I'll do the required site maintenance and then post-publishing, which takes up most of my time in the day, plus, evaluating future business selling the site.
Yeah, I think that's great. It sounds like you've really looked into each process that the business needs and refined it and streamlined it to the point where, you don't have to spend that much time on the business, but you're still getting that same amount of quality out, which is really great. Given everything that we've discussed, the fact that you have these SOPs in place for the new buyer, what sort of challenges do you think they might encounter when they take over the business?
Yeah, totally. And so if you would have asked me this a few months ago, I would have said, the standard, hey, reliance on Google is the main risk. There's not much else. Unfortunately, now there's 2 things. So we're seeing one, what seems to be an industry-wide drop in RPMs, like not just this site, it's really across a lot of verticals from what it seems to be just in display ad spending and revenue. And then coupled with that, like I mentioned earlier, shortly after we decided to list, we saw an early January traffic drop, which again, bummer, right? But to touch on that first part, the RPM drop is something an experienced buyer is really going to be familiar with, as the RPMs seem to fluctuate with the US economy overall. I would expect advertising to get back on par in the near future as things tend to stabilize overall in the economy. But since the site itself is under monetized with affiliates, it's really a great niche and it's positioned to do well for the long term. just because of there's really quite a few revenue options that somebody could take this and capitalize on that monetization. In regards to the traffic drop, again, really could not ask for worse timing. I haven't seen much of a significant drop, if really anything like this, over the last 3.5 years. So I'm confident that things are going to get back to normal. I think that part of the traffic drop really stems from some of the top posts naturally aging, where they could use some updating. There's also the case that the vast majority of the content on the site is in fact geared for peak season during the spring, summer, and early fall. So there's less content getting eyeballs overall right now, where any drop looks pretty significant. So the biggest risk with that is weathering the storm and anticipating things to get back up to speed in mid-spring, or with a future blessing from Google positively impacting the site. Since the site is a single author with a strong DR and backlink profile, I would expect things to be positively impacted in the future. But again, I can't warrant that, as I would love to be able to predict Google, and I'd be like the Google Oracle at that point. So
yeah, I think the quality of your content certainly gives you a bit of protection, as well as that diversification of revenue. At least you're not relying entirely on one revenue stream, which is a good thing. Given these challenges that the buyer might encounter, how much support are you willing to offer to sort of guide them through that and help them see the light at the end of the tunnel?
yeah, totally. So I put down 4 scheduled calls with the 45 days out, which I'm very flexible with that. Like if you say, hey, Zach, I really need you for a couple months here, or, a little bit longer, like, yeah, we can discuss something, totally. But whatever is needed to make the transition as seamless as possible, because at the end of the day, like somebody who's going to buy this is probably pretty experienced in the overall content site business. So it would also be a learning experience for me as well to continue to work with somebody on transitioning.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely a win-win situation. When it comes down to the details of the sale itself, would you be open to something like an earn-out agreement?
Yeah, most likely I would. I'd be open to really any reasonable offers that make the most sense for both parties.
Perfect. Yeah, that certainly makes sense. And would you be open to something like a non-compete agreement?
Definitely. Since I mentioned that second brand is in a shouldering niche, it's not directly competing with it, but there may be some potential overlap in the future, but not really much. So what I would want to do is identify specific categories that say, hey, I won't touch for X amount of years, and just kind of work off of that. But just, have more of a specific non-compete versus a broad, like, hey, no, this vertical, for instance.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds fair. So, Zach, you've been in this business for quite a while now. As you say, you've got 2 sites that are doing really, really well. And I'm sure there are a lot of people listening who want to get into the content site game. It's a great place to be in at the moment. So what advice do you have for listeners who are thinking of starting their own content site that you wish you'd known when you first started out?
Yeah, definitely. And luckily, this is something that I knew starting out, but it was really hard to grasp. And that's just like being patient, because you're going to do all of this work and it might take 15 months for an article to reach its maximum age on Google based on this style of content. And it's really just, you need to be patient. And during that phase of month 1 to month 12, or to month even 15, depending on the niche, you just need to be patient and keep working and publishing content. Because if you stop, let's say you work for the first 3 months and then you're like, I'm not seeing any traffic. And then you stop working from months 3 to 9, and then you start to see traffic. Then from months 10 to whatever I just said, you're not going to see that traffic increase because you haven't been working on the site and you haven't been producing articles. Where if you were patient and you trust the process and then just keep pushing forward, you're going to see that continued growth. And it's really going to streamline everything, from doing everything in 1 year versus getting it up and running in 3 years. Like, it really speeds the timeline up significantly by just being patient and trusting the process.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, and definitely something I think a lot of people forget. It's not overnight success. It does require consistency and patience, but there's definitely a great reward if you can pull through that and reach that timeline. So, Zach, that leads us to the final question of the interview, and the one that I think most buyers are interested in. If you had to put yourself into the shoes of a buyer, why do you think your business is a business worth buying?
It's a great question. Obviously it comes from a viewpoint, because this is like my baby. And it's almost like, you're selling your family house that you've lived in for like 3 or 4 generations. For me, this has been a site where I really dumped so much passion into it. And I just remember going back, living in my apartment at the time, and I'm just like pacing back and forth. And I did this for like a couple of weeks straight. I'm like, oh my God, what niche am I going to pick? Like, okay, this is what I have the most experience in, but is this going to work? And I really just dumped so much passion into this. And obviously I can't get too sentimental, but when you get a niche site, you tend to get owners who really care about every little thing that's on the site. And it's kind of a direct reflection of them, which I feel like if somebody's purchasing this, like they're listening to me and I have a chance to meet with them, It's something where you're going to kind of see my passion and the detail that I've tried my very best to put into the site. Not everything's been perfect. Nobody's perfect, but when you get those niche sites, you really get owners who are passionate about them. The site also really has a great track record and backlink profile, and it's nothing shady. I mean, it's been white hat. I don't know what you could consider gray hat, but it's really been as white hat it possibly can be to my knowledge, just trying to put out as helpful content as possible. So with that track record and with the backlink profile, it's really just gotten a lot of quality care over time. And it's something where this is a very competitive niche. And this is one of the top sites in this specific niche when you compare ones that rank in the top pages that aren't a specific business or like brick and mortar business for this niche. So overall, I think it's a great asset. And I think there's definitely some hurdles like any business, but it can be worked through with the correct buyer.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. I think there's definitely a lot of benefits here. It certainly sounds like a solid website that'll make a really great launch pad for the right buyer. Well, Zach, thank you so much for coming onto the show and giving us some insights into your business and your processes. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show, and I really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much. You're awesome, and I hope your dog is going to be doing awesome as the day goes on.
Yeah, fingers crossed. All right, everyone, thanks for listening. To learn more and see if this listing has already been sold, head over to empireflippers.com/marketplace and search for listing number 66160. If you're watching this on YouTube, click the link in the description to go straight to the listing. Once you've unlocked this listing, you'll be given everything you need to know about this business. So until next time, enjoy your digital journey.